Well, hello and welcome to the Practitioner podcast. This is a relatively new podcast from us at Renaissance, a network of missional practitioners and microchurches in the greater Boston area. Every episode we talk about themes around living on mission and living in microchurch community. Our conversations are practical, touching on the realities of everyday, ordinary people. This is because our mission is all about cultivating beautiful kingdom people embedded in the everyday stuff of life. As you can tell, Christine, who is typically the host, the main voice on this podcast, is not here. She is just starting to get back into things after some travel and some time away. But I am not solo because I am...
Guess who's back?
Joined by the one and only Fabricio Pais. How's it going, Fab?
It's going amazing. I just had to get on the last episode and basically shame all of you into letting me back on, and now I'm back, apparently.
And I got your name right. The second time's a charm.
Well, I would hope.
So good. Well, I'm glad you're here, and it's not just going to be us. We actually just got done recording an interview that we are so excited for you to hear from one of our friends named Steve. We first met him, do you know what year it was?
Oh, good question. It was during the COVID season. I almost want to say
2020?
like 2021, 2022.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I met him. He was telling us you've known him
Good
for
point.
20 years?
I've known him for 20 years. I met him 20 years ago when I was a young adult, a youth worker at the church I was at the time, in the Assemblies of God, and we took our youth group down to go have a youth service at his youth group, and I got to lead worship at his church with the youth group. So, and then over the years have just, the Assemblies of God denomination isn't so vast in Massachusetts or Southern New England that you run into each other a lot. So I've got to know Steve over the years, an incredible guy. But then, you got to meet him during this cohort that we had.
Well, that was thanks to you. We had a exploratory cohort. Occasionally, we do things beyond the immediate Renaissance network and offer up some of what we do for others, and led a number of folks who were more missionally minded in the Assemblies of God denomination through some of what we were doing. And it was a awesome cohort. I mean, there were so many people, but I'm biased, but Steve was kind of a standout. I mean, he's been getting it. His beard's gotten longer since then, but his wisdom has not. He was always kind of there. So much so that you're going to hear him talk a little bit about this, but after, what did he say, 16 and a half years of being at his church down on the
16 and a half in this one, and what was it, like 20 plus years of ministry? Yeah.
Basically transitioned out of traditional ministry to move out to Berkshire County on the Appalachian Trail to help now start Hiker Church. And still figuring out a lot of what that's looking like. In fact, after we stopped the recording, he was talking a little bit about it maybe evolving into its own network of microchurches in the hiker community, which is really cool. But he's gotten to spend a big chunk of this year hiking for the first time all the way through. I think he's hiked a number of different times up and down the AT, but not the entire thing as a chaplain.
2,200 miles.
2,200 miles. He's just about to finish it up. So we got to record right before his last weekend of finishing it up. And it's a pretty awesome interview where you're going to hear Steve's heart, what God has been doing. And even though it sounds so extreme, I'm always so cautious. Like, we're so used to hearing missionary tales in our churches, and it's sort of these grandiose things. And I think people are going to be like, I'm not going to quit my job and become a chaplain on the AT. What does this have to do with me? And yet, what he talks about, as he's going to talk about engaging spiritually curious people and drops a lot of other wisdom, is so applicable to, I think, what every single person listening to this is going to deal with in their own neighborhoods and workplaces.
Yeah, and he, it was interesting because he was like, I'm still trying to figure this out. I'm like, no way, man. Like, what you're saying is what everybody needs to be doing. There's nothing left to figure out. You don't need a mentor. You don't need somebody who's done hiker church before. Like, you're living it. You are doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So we won't extend this any longer,
No.
but we are excited for this podcast episode. And right after this break, you're going to enjoy this incredible interview with Steve. Well, welcome to the podcast, Steve. We were just talking about you in our intro before you are jumping on here, and we probably did a terrible job giving background information on who you are and what you do, because it was just basically involving our story with you. So why don't you start off our podcast by telling us a little bit about your life, about your journey in ministry, and how in the world you ended up doing this thing you call hiker church.
Yeah, first of all, it's my absolute pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you extending the invitation. Probably the most important piece of my life is I've been married for 30 years to the same woman. And I don't know how she's put up with me that long, being in ministry all those years as well. So, but we're happily married after 30 years. 3 grown children, 3 grandkids, and loving life. Came to Massachusetts 22 years ago. Started working in a church on Cape Cod.
Second best decision you ever made, coming to Massachusetts 21 years ago.
Third best. Jesus, my wife, and then
Oh,
to Massachusetts.
I guess we can sneak Jesus in, maybe. Jesus or no Jesus, it's still a great decision.
And worked as youth pastor for my previous youth pastor, Guy Miller, who I know Fab knows. And loved my time there. From there, went to a few towns over to Hyannis and started pastoring Faith Assembly of God Church there, which I was there for 16 and a half years. Yeah, so 10 years ago, I started backpacking. A friend of mine introduced me. I like camping in the outdoors, and he took me on my first backpacking trip. It was terrible. We were unprepared. I had way too heavy gear. I mean, looking back now, anything logistically that could have gone wrong went wrong, and I was hooked. I absolutely loved it. And so I just began backpacking and doing those kinds of things, and free time while pastoring. And then on my sabbatical in 2019, I hiked the Georgia section of the Appalachian Trail, and it was there that I discovered the spiritual receptivity of people who are hiking the trail. In normal society, you find out you're a pastor, nobody wants to talk to you. If you're playing golf, oh, I'm a pastor, everybody stops talking. It's just, so you try to be secretive about what you do when you're in, the public. And but it was the opposite. People would find out I was a pastor, and they'd be like, I have all kinds of questions. And we'd talk about faith, we'd talk about God, we'd talk about church, we'd talk about Bible. And I came home from that going, man, I don't know what to do with this. And so I just started exploring that. Every time I went hiking, I just started throwing out right up front. Somebody asked, so what do you do? I'm a pastor. And inevitably, every single time I hiked, I'd get in at least one God conversation. And that just, that just floored me. I don't know if we're going to get into this later, but I think it was I saw some research, and I don't know, Drew, if it was in the cohort we were in together, but somebody had done this research, and I don't know how they came about this information, but they talked about the receptivity of people going to a traditional church as it's structured now, 4 walls, steeple, service. And they were like, only 40-something% of the population is predisposed to accepting an invitation and attending a traditional church like we know it. And that all the current churches are all fighting for that 40-something% of the population. And I remember sitting there thinking, well, what about the other 50-something%? And it was at that point, it was just like the light bulb turned on, like, man, I'm working in a field and doing work that thousands of people are really fishing for the same people I'm fishing for. And there's a lot of ponds out there that nobody's fishing at all in. And that started the process of how do I minister to the hiking community I've fallen in love with, which has led me to starting a ministry to hikers. And that's where we're at today. I just finished hiking 2,200 miles of the Appalachian Trail, living outdoors with hikers for 6 months. And it has been confirming, affirming. It's just an amazing experience. So that's it in a nutshell.
Can you tell us what is Hiker Church? Like, if you were to give us like the elevator pitch, what is it?
Yeah. So Hiker Church right now is an idea, and it's an idea centered around my heart, which is, I have it written on my board up here. It says, to anchor the hiking community to Christ. And instead of starting with a model, we're starting with the problem and a question. What's the best way to anchor the hiking community to Christ? What are the actions, the activities, the approaches that we need to do? And so that's Hiker Church currently we're in the process of figuring out what those activities are. But in a nutshell, here are our core principles: that we're going to use the same language hikers do, explore, discover, and engage. And we're going to use those three activities around the three ways the invisible God reveals himself: through creation, through the scriptures, and through the person of Jesus Christ. So we're going to explore, we're going to make discoveries, and we're going to engage those three areas. And it's been, the receptivity around the idea has been really, really good.
So you told us a bit about being in the cohort with us, and how you heard that statistic, and really made you start thinking. But I'd love to backtrack even further, right? Because you were willing to jump into this cohort to talk about what does it look like, maybe if church looked differently, if I was pastoring differently. Can you talk about maybe where you started to feel the inkling of, man, is there some other way to do this thing? And then I'd love to hear about, how did that feel for you, wrestling through that, Because it could be scary for somebody who's been doing something one way and has been taught and has seen results of that, right? I'd love for folks to hear your journey and how you came to terms with these thoughts you're having.
I think two things. One, as a lead pastor of a small church, it was incredibly frustrating because you get into ministry for the people. You want to see people's lives change. You want to walk alongside people. You want to minister to people. And what would happen is probably maybe 20% of my time was spent doing those things. And the other 80% was managing the organization of what we call the church. And that is not my skill set. I'm a people person. And so I could get by. I did a good job. But, I think the churches that were killing it were people who were great business administrators. And so I think I learned that early on. And so I had to come to grips with, in terms with, well, I'm a people person, and I'm just okay with, I'm going to give my best, and I'm going to be okay with wherever ministry lands. So that was one part. Second part was, I fell in love with the hiking community. And as I explored and talked to them and got involved in the community, I realized, man, these folks have a spiritual curiosity, but for a lot of different reasons, not just one reason. They're just not comfortable going to a traditional church to explore that. And so that bothered me. And so I said, well, what's the best approach? Me trying to convince them to go to a local church, or figure something out to reach them in an alternative way. So I think that was probably the crux, my drive, because I love the hiking community. And because of their spiritual questions, I know Jesus is the answer to those spiritual questions. So how do you reconcile that? And so I was just curious, like, other people who are doing things differently. First of all, you got to get permission to think outside the box, right? That's the first step. And I think that was a lot of that early days, going through the cohort, reading Hirsch and Frost and Bosch and those kinds of folks, and going, oh wow, people are doing things much differently. And I still, I'm still in the position. I love the local church. My whole life grew up there. I am who I am today because of the traditional local church. But there's people I love who need Jesus, who aren't going to go to that local church, so I have to do something different. And yeah, that's where I'm at now.
I love that you said that, Steve, because I share that a lot in our microchurch. For those of you listening, I'm sure you've heard of microchurches, but it's a group that gathers at my place, my house, called Emmaus. Is that I always say I couldn't be where I am today without growing up in the traditional church, in varying forms of the traditional church. You know, as a young kid, early teens, I went to Portuguese-speaking churches that were predominantly made up of Brazilians. Then later in life, transitioning, going to English-speaking Pentecostal church, where, you know, we met at the Assemblies of God, and then going to Bible college and having a different experience there. All of those things culminated in where I am today. So I love that you honored that, you know, because it is true.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to, here in a second, want to ask you a lot of questions about engaging spiritually curious people, because that's what you've been doing. And, you know, I think you were just talking about it, but you were talking to us before we hit the record button that you are getting ready to hike the last stretch of the AT, and you will have completed it. I know it'd be really cool to have you connect the dots. I know you got kind of named a chaplain this year, I believe, is for the trail. Love for you to talk about that. And maybe before we get into specifically spiritually curious people, the biggest thing you've learned in transitioning to hiker church. Like, you know, I know you were excited about it. You caught the bug for it. You said, this is where I want to serve. And maybe to connect the dots while I'm asking the question, we have a lot of people who have your story that have entered our world, who they fall in love with their neighborhood or their city or a justice cause or a group of people. And they say, you know what? I'm tired of waiting for the local church to come reach that. I love you talked about the 60-40 principle. That's 60% of the area that I'm in that are not going to darken the door of a church. I'm going to be that person. But also reality hits them as well as they step into that and like, oh, it's easy to be idealistic, and you step into it and you're like, this is a little bit different than I thought it was going to be. So I'd love for you to talk about being a chaplain, how that happened, and then maybe some of the growing pains associated with this transition.
Yeah. So can I switch it? I'll talk about the growing pains because it leads into
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
And so I think for us, the initial growing pains was, first of all, the unknown. Unknown in several categories. The unknown in, well, what am I going to be doing throughout my day? Like, how do I go about this? The second unknown is, how am I going to live? Do I have to go get a job? You know, because I'm paid by the church. So, and I've been paid by the church for the last 20 years. So, you know, you start putting resumes out there for decent paying jobs. It's like, oh, so you've talked with people for 20 years. That's great. Like, you know what? I know I've done more than that, but how do you prove that to a secular employer? Like, yeah, I've worked at a church for 20 years. So So all those nervous factor pieces that had to be thought through and worked through and those kinds of things. I think once, and then the other part of it was I literally left a church I loved. We had gone, the church had been a revitalization. Won't get in the whole story, but there was 12 people when I walked in the door in an auditorium that seats 300. And they were like over $500,000 in debt. It was a terrible situation. And, here we are 16 years later. We're out of debt. The church is starting to grow. Things are healthy. The church loves me. I mean, I've earned their respect and their support. And so now, technically, I should be just enjoying that season of growth. The hard work is done. And then God's like, no, leave. Like, just that like, man. And so there's a process of working through all of that, calling and obedience to what God's calling us to, and all those kinds of pieces. So I think those are really hard things that God is gracious based on your personality to take you through the right processes. And I was intentional to not rush it, because I said I need to leave well. I need to maintain these relationships. I need to have a plan. I don't want to hurt my family and just jump out and the best job I can get is delivering pizzas, just any of that kind of stuff. So, so once we made that commitment and I gave notice, the church was so nice to us, sold the house on the Cape, and then God just began to do stuff that confirmed we were on the right track. Like the current house we're in was literally a pastor in the community here for 30 years who was answering the call of God to resign his church and go to Boston to start a ministry. And so he by faith resigns. I by faith resign. His house is right on the Appalachian Trail. And so I'm sharing with the real estate agent what I want to do, why I'm moving here. And he's a secular guy. He's like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. Then he tells me it's like there's a pastor who lives here now, and he resigned too. What are you pastors doing, resigning and shuffling around the country? And a neighbor was joking, like, you got to put it in your deed, like only pastors can live here, kind of thing. And so it's so that guy he and his wife were so happy. They raised their family here, and then to know that they're leaving, ministry was going to happen in their home. Like it brought closure for them. So all these God moments along the way. And so we got in. My wife and I started exploring, okay, now we're here, we're transitioned. God's grace in the sense that the house on the Cape had equity in it, so we have money in the bank to survive off of, that kind of, all those kinds of things. And somebody forwards me a Facebook thing that's like, hey, this organization is looking for chaplains for the Appalachian Trail. And I was like, talk to my wife. I'm like, what do you think? She's like, I think you should do it. For a lot of reasons. One, I think it builds credibility with the hiker as I'm doing hiking ministry. Like, yeah, I not only fully hiked the Appalachian Trail, but I went as a chaplain. And I don't know how many people applied, but I was selected. And so about this time last year, they called me and said, hey, you're the guy. We picked you, and let's start this process. It's not a paid position, but it was a sponsored position, so they sponsored my hike, transportation, gear, and food. So I basically hiked for free, which is 10 to 12 grand probably in all of it. But yeah, so I think all of that uneasiness and walking into an unknown area, because the other side of the coin is what we have in our heart. To this point, we haven't found another ministry out there that we can model after. There's nobody that we can call and say, hey, will you mentor us in what you're doing? I mean, there's microchurch movements like what you guys are doing and those kinds of pieces, but specifically to the hiking community. And So that creates its own tension in the sense of what should we be doing with our time? How do we reach the hikers? What does that look like? So the hike was super important as the chaplain. It gave me permission to ask spiritual questions to people. Like, hey, if you were ever going to accept an invitation to a church, what kind of pieces would you love to see at a church when you walked in the door? Those kinds of questions. And so yeah, so I hiked as the chaplain, and dozens of very deep spiritual conversations over the time. I baptized 2 individuals.
Wow.
A third one expressed wanting to be baptized, but then got cold feet or whatever. They didn't follow through. 2 conversations of young people who were considering going to seminary and what my thoughts were. And
That's cool.
yeah, even several really, really good conversations with those in the LGBTQ community. A couple of them transitioning from male to female or female to male, and just amazing conversations that I never gotten into as a pastor of a traditional church.
I'm just curious. So, let's talk about being on the trail, right? Here's this guy, he's walking around, you're meeting people, and I've watched your videos, so I guess I have a little bit of
Hey, thank you.
Same.
Of context here, but it's clear like you keep running into the same people, but like at different phases, and you had some characters. I loved all the nicknames, like who just kind of would go with you for a long time and then break off and then maybe come back. Tell me more about what you were just talking about. How do these conversations start? Are you just first getting to know them, and then through time you're building trust and developing rapport, and hey, I'm a chaplain because that's your title, right? I'm a chaplain on the trail, here's what I'm doing. And are people opening up to you, or are you prompting them? Is it a mix of both? Just what's it like? Because I think this is it's interesting. You were like, nobody's doing the hiking thing, but I think all of this, what you did on a trail, any of us can do on our street, on our sidewalk, at our school, at our job. It translates across different locations.
Yeah. Big can of worms. We're going to open it.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. So the first year, my wife and I, we thought we would create, because our home is right on the Appalachian Trail, that we would create a safe place here. The hikers would walking by the front of the house, would come up, and we would feed them, give them a place to rest, charge their devices, whatever. And that first summer, like nobody was stopping. And I started asking, like, what's going on? And the real reason is our house is on the outside of town as they're leaving town. So most of the time they've already gotten all the services they need. That's the practical answer. But the spiritual answer that the Holy Spirit told me was, you're starting this ministry just like the traditional church. Stop it. You're creating a space that you're asking the hiker to come to. That's not what I want you to do. You need to go to the hiker. And so we had to just rethink, and that's where when the opportunity came to hike with the hiking community, I jumped on it. And here's what I discovered in general about people. Like, people are smart. If I come with an agenda or a strategy, they pick up on it. They're not dumb. They know what it's like to be sold anything on the market. I mean, when an influencer's on YouTube, they're not genuine and care about me. They're just creating a video for likes. It's not just churchy stuff. And so I had to come to the realization that, one, the activity that I'm engaged in, apart from the people, is an activity I already enjoy and love. And so I think that communicates to anybody across the board, whatever you enjoy doing, or whatever community you live in. You love your community. You have something to talk about beyond just spiritual things.
Mhm.
You have a common interest, and that you both love. You love your building or your community or your kid's soccer traveling team or whatever it is. So you can build this relationship and have conversation outside of spiritual arenas, which was the hard part being a pastor, because that's all I came to the table with was my spirituality. And so if they weren't interested in talking about spiritual things, we had nothing to talk about. And then there's awkward silence. So I think, first of all, knowing that, and I love hiking, I love the outdoors, and I have that in common. Second thing was I had to become a student of them. What's their love language? What are their needs? And I found out two things about the hiking community that is their love language. Food, because they're always calorie depraved. Like, you can't carry enough calories on your back to satisfy the demand your body has. So you give hikers good food, and they're not going anywhere. And then the second is be listened to. Because we live in a world where everyone's talking but nobody's listening. And so when you sit down and you just ask a hiker, what's your story? And then you shut up and you actually listen to them and ask questions like, wait, did I just hear you say this? That's crazy. Or they're like, man, this person actually cares. Like, so food and listening are very powerful things in the hiking community, which are probably powerful in other communities as well.
Yeah.
But so and then second, thirdly, nobody wants to be treated like a project. And so the hiking community, I think, is open to spiritual things and conversations more than the average, because the majority of them are in a place of transition. You think about it, taking 6 months off of life, I mean, not just work, but your family, your job, career. Something's usually a transition, good, bad, indifferent. So a lot of college students, they graduated college, they're taking a year off before they become adults and into the working world. And so, but it's a space of transition. People who have retired, same kind of concept. Military, people have experienced loss, lost a career, lost a relationship, lost a loved one. So a lot of transition stuff. So they're in a open mindset already about searching. Kind of like when I was a pastor, I knew weddings, baby dedications, and funerals were the time people were most open to hear what I had to say. Right?
So true.
So same thing. The hikers just they're in a search mode, and so listening, feeding, loving on them was important. But they don't want to be treated as a project. I think that's the point I was getting at. And so, man, I didn't want to lead either with the fact that I was a chaplain. So I have a very discreet patch that's on my backpack that just says AT chaplaincy. And I just talk to people like the regular folks. Like, I didn't walk in like, hey, I'm the chaplain. You need anything?
You didn't have a chaplain office on the trail, like a bunch of.
No, I didn't have to wear a white collar or any of those kinds of things. It was wonderful. And you know what? I could just be me, loving the outdoors, and bringing to the hiker the unconditional love. And I just stopped at that instead of saying the unconditional love of Christ, because we have to bring unconditional love. And we're able to do that when we receive unconditional love from Christ. So I feel like sometimes if I say, hey, the unconditional love of Christ, it's like I've kind of stepped out and I'm just the middleman passing it on. But that's not the way God intended it. God said, hey, I'm going to pour out my love on you, and you're going to change, and then you're going to go love people in the same way that I've loved you. And it is shocking how powerful unconditional love is. And I tell folks, it's not an emotion, it's a choice. Love is a verb, the old DC Talk song. Love is a verb. And I choose if I'm going to act or not act. And if I want to know what those actions are, I just pull up 1 Corinthians 13. Am I being patient with this person? Am I, forgetting the sins against me? Am I, and man, if you just love people unconditionally, eventually they have a conversation with you because they've never experienced that anywhere else. And sometimes not even from their family. So, I don't know if that answered.
No, I think that's incredible.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, to continually translate it, because this is the Practitioner podcast, and I think what you're talking about is the journey we're always inviting everyone into. Is this idea of not only not going, always not going in with an agenda, but going in with the idea that God's doing something before I show up, so I can kind of surrender and kind of come in with hands open, with a posture of surrender, knowing that God's doing something there, and then also that I want to steward everyone's stories and lives that I'm encountering, that I'm looking into the eyes of the Imago Dei, and so I think there's so many things that even though, who knows who's listening to this, might not ever be any other hikers that are going to join in your context, the lessons translate, I think, so well to our neighborhoods, to our workplaces, to the places that we play. And it's cool to hear you talk about that, because it's some of the same themes that we sometimes hear other people as they're navigating things, some of the lessons that they need to learn. But I want to drill down a little bit, because you're talking about why people are on the trail, and even some of the way that you're talking reminds me. I've got a friend that's hiked the Camino de Santiago a couple of times, and talks very similarly. Like, every single person that he encountered is definitely there for a reason. They're searching for something, and they're looking for something. And so I would be fascinated. What are those themes that you're hearing? What are you talked about what some of the questions that you're asking, but maybe even questions that you're not asking, just things that are coming up as you steward as you ask them their story, and it's just the thing that they share. So I'd be fascinated, like, as you build those relationships, what, maybe not even necessarily around faith or Christianity, but maybe just even spiritually, are there themes that ever emerge that, like, you start to look over the time you've already had on the trail, that there's some through lines?
I think some of those themes are people are overworked. They feel this constant pressure in society to perform, and it's not just on their job. It's it's everywhere. It's to be the perfect parent. It's to be the perfect husband or wife. It's to have the Instagram worthy house. It's just everywhere, and I think there's just a lot of folks burned out on that, and they get. I think sometimes they don't even know why they're running to the wilderness, but they get out there and they embrace the simplicity of just, man, I get up every day, I eat, I walk, I eat, I walk, I eat, I sleep, and then I get up and I do the next day the same thing, and it's so healing. You watch all of the stuff just melt away, and for those who can't shift into that, they end up quitting and leaving the trail. So that's one for sure. And then I think because of where society's at, a common phrase I hear from is people suck. Early on, that's what people suck. Like, and then they get out on the trail and they realize, well, no, not all people. And there's this community that loves each other and is there. And oftentimes, a big thing at the end of the trail, you hear hikers say, "My faith in humanity was restored." And so, for me, though, I engage that when they say people suck. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, oh, it's so chaotic. And so I say, well, so it's the chaos of life. Yeah. And I go, do you ever contribute to that chaos? And they're like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, oh, so you're one of the people that suck too. And they're like, I said, so you mean there's probably somebody hiking a trail somewhere to get away from you too? And they're like, and we laugh about it. Yeah, probably.
That's good.
You know, and it's like, well, there's no perfect people.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a theme in Scripture we can talk about. So, but usually there's a component of someone's been just overwhelmed by society, or hurt somewhere along the way by other people, or they're in this huge crossroads in life and they have no idea what they're going to do, and they're just walking, hoping something comes. And then a fourth one I would say is this internal, and I think the three of us know what that is, but there's this internal dissatisfaction and they don't know why with life. Like, my life is fine, but I don't feel like everything's right. Like, I just need to, maybe if I walk, I'll figure it out. And I love, an older singer, Laura Story, had in her song Blessings, she has this line towards the end that says, basically, I'm going to paraphrase it, what if our dissatisfaction with the things of this world reveals a thirst this world can't satisfy? Like, that's a revealer of something. There's something missing in their life, and that's the God component. But I think those are four common things that come up very regular with hikers.
Steve, I'm curious. What role does being in nature play in all of this in terms of spirituality? I think of the Psalms where, the psalmist is talking about how God is revealing himself in nature. Have you, I don't even want to direct the question. Explain to me. I'm not a hiker. I'm a city guy. I'm a concrete jungle guy. So I want to know. Teach me the ways.
I'm glad you clarified. You don't even like camping. Like,
no, no.
Fab does
None
not
of it.
like getting dirty outside.
I don't want to get dirty. I don't want to be hot. I don't want to have a lot of gear. Like, I don't need any of that.
Yeah. No, I'm smiling and I'm laughing because this is the focus of my master's program right now.
Oh.
So
By the way, I didn't know that, podcasters. This is not a bit like a planted question.
Yeah, this is. In fact, I'm writing a paper right now. What are the attributes of God that we see in nature?
I love that.
Anyway, so I could talk for hours on that. Let me just ask you, Pat, how do you feel on a nice warm day and you're walking on nice green grass in your bare feet? How does that make you feel? I mean,
peaceful. I would say it makes me feel peaceful. Time slows down a little bit, I would say, as well.
So like in the Caribbean, underneath the palm tree, light breeze and the sand under your toes, how does that make you feel?
Relaxed. And by the way, I love the ocean, so I'm not an anti-nature guy. Let's just put this out there, okay? So my thing is, like, I love, and by living in East Boston, I have easy access to the coast, 5 minutes away. So I like to ride my bike up and down the coast, and I would just stare into the water, listen to the water, smell the salt, all of that. So that's my thing that I really enjoy.
Before you pay this off, Steve, I just have to say I'm loving, number one, I love that you reversed the podcast. And you're asking the questions now. Two, that you could so sense Fab's dissonance when you said something about walking in the grass with this, and he was just like, he tried to answer, and you're like, I've got to find some other way to connect with him. That's how good you are. So you already instantly knew that you needed to ask a different question.
I know.
So
I know.
amazing.
Because what I discovered is everybody on the planet loves nature.
Yeah.
It's just, what nature are we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And for some, I mean, you get them on a ski slope on the top of that mountain, and they look down over the fresh fallen snow and that crisp, cold air, and something inside them just moves.
Preach.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
For some, it's that Caribbean vacation, laying in the sand under the coconut tree, feeling that warm breeze. Time slows down. Something healing starts to happen in their mind and in their heart. And I think this is what outdoor enthusiasts experience. And it's addictive, because who doesn't want to feel rejuvenated, recharged, those activities? The issue has been when they try to articulate it, the traditional church has said, you're worshiping nature, you're at fault, get in the building. So they come in the building and they're told that, hey, we serve a God of peace, a God of love, a God who restores. This is our Sabbath. And then what they experience on Sunday morning is nothing that what they're experiencing when they're in nature. So then they write the church off altogether. So the question of why this happens in nature, I think, is a metaphysical response. I mean, it's a lot of deep thinking and whatnot. I think this is what I tell hikers, is in any of the arts, whether it be music, ballet or dance, food, actual painting kind of art, when the artist has given themselves to it and you engage with it, you feel a sense of who the artist is. Like when you watch the cooking shows, they'll say, oh, I can tell this food was made with love, right? Or a good piece of music, like you can tell the artist put their heart and soul into that, and you can feel it. So I think when people engage with nature, God created that. You're getting a sense of who the creator is. And this is my argument with people in the outdoors, like, tell me what you feel when you're out here. Why do you like coming out here? And I get the same responses, Fabs, you just said. Man, I feel things slow down. I feel like I can think clearly. I feel like I can breathe deeply. I feel a sense of peace. I feel a sense of rest. And I go, you have just described the God of the Bible. So he said, if he created this, it's an invitation for you to get to know him deeper. And if you like this, you're really going to like what's next. And so I think everybody who engages with nature has similar feelings. Not all the same nature, because I understand you're not going to want to camp outside for a month straight and hike into very remote places where you're dealing with insects and all kinds of such. You're walk in the grass in bare feet, walk on the sand, watch the sunset, but it evokes the same emotion. It's an emotion of wonder. And at the end of the day, wonder is really just gratitude. So if you experience gratitude when you're out in nature, who are you grateful to? Right? Your gratitude has to be directed towards something.
Yeah.
So it's the Creator who's, through beauty and through the impact in you, is drawing you towards gratitude and to himself through beauty and wonder. So that's it in a nutshell.
I'm sold. I'm a hiker now. That's it. I'm in. Sold me. Let's go. Appalachian Trail.
9 o'clock, I'm leaving.
Here we go. 80 miles tomorrow.
I can't wait to hold you to that.
Well, I mean, by the way, Drew has planned for us to go do this hike in some other country in Europe, whatever it's called.
It's in Spain.
Spain. He's like, yeah, we're going to do it. I'm like, all right, here we go.
Is it the Camino?
Yeah.
Camino. Yeah, I heard there's an easy trail, though, but I know Drew is an overachiever. He's not going to want to do that. So I'm going to have to gripe. He's going to gripe, and he's going to be like, no, and then it's going to be like a whole thing. But
The
That would be
Camino is like
great.
the junior Appalachian Trail.
Okay.
So
So
if you like the Camino, then you can move up to the
I
Appalachian Trail.
I will find out someday
There you
if
go.
I like it. We'll see.
Well, we're needing to wrap up. Steve, why don't you maybe pass on to others who are looking to have the sort of conversations that you're talking about? We've talked about the fact that there's some overlap, but if they're wanting to have some of these conversations where they live, work, study, or play, how would you coach them? What would be the things that you would say would be the advice? Like, stop doing this. If you could, I'm sure maybe if some church has you guest preach and talk about what you're doing, what would be the sorts of things that you would tell those folks as they look to join God where they're at?
Yeah, I think if you've been bitten with the bug of wanting to do church in a non-traditional way, and you really want to see people who are far from Jesus know Jesus, I'd say, engage the spaces you already are in or that you already love, whether that be your community, your workplace, your school, the hobbies you have, the things that you're already there and you have some knowledge of. Because, yeah, I think it's more authentic that way, and you build relationships better and deeper, and you have a commonality there. I would say, second, the most powerful force is unconditional love. And first, if you haven't received unconditional love from Christ, find a quiet place and just say, Lord, I want to receive your love today so that I'm not doing this out of a performance to make you like me better or because it's a cool idea or I want to be an influencer or like receive the love of Christ for yourself because we're all imperfect people. And by receiving the unconditional love of Christ, it brings everybody on the same level as you. You don't see people as less than you or better than you. We're just all people, And then reciprocate that. Like find out what someone's love language is. Is it bring them coffee every morning? Is it conversation? Is it listening? Is it just discover what that is? Is it working side by side together on a community project? Is it just explore what's important to them and then work in those arenas and be, as Eugene Peterson says, just a long obedience in the same direction. Just be consistent. And there are some people who are right away curious, and there are other people. I hiked with somebody for 5 months, and then they're part of the they're transitioning from one gender to another, and they sent me a simple text after 5 months and said, "Me and a few others have been watching you, and we think you're a man of integrity in your hiking ministry. Thanks for being you."
Wow.
Huge. That's huge. But that's 5 months of walking and hiking and having conversations and living authentically in front of them. And so just know it's just be consistent. Just be you in the places you love, with the people you love. So.
Well, this has been like such an awesome. I feel like I'm learning a lot. So thank you for sharing
Me
your
too.
heart, and makes me want to come hike with you sometime. Head out to Western Mass, and get to do some of it. Where, if folks are interested in finding out more about what you do, what would be the best place for them to find and follow along in your journey?
So Hiker Church is on the web, hikerchurch.com, or on social media, or me personally, under Father Time Hikes, either on YouTube or Instagram.
Is that your trail name?
Father Time, that's my trail name.
Nice. It wasn't Bishop or Preach or... No, just kidding. Well, thank you thank you so much for this. Please go follow it. Fab and I were just talking about it. We've both been following it, and that's part of what sparked this wanting to do this interview, because just how transformative it's been is to follow it from afar. I would just say, if you're listening to this, thanks for joining us and continuing this podcast journey that we're on as we walk through the realities of following God in the everyday. If you want to find out more about our network, from microchurches to future cohorts like the one Steve's referencing, and would like to maybe journey along with us, we can't promise that you won't quit your job and move somewhere else to do God's work. But if you are interested in any of that, head to wearerenaissance.org. And besides that, see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.